Hello and welcome to this episode of the Disruptive Author Magazine. My name's Deborah Fay and today I'm talking to lawyer and author in her own right, Jeanette Jifkins from Onyx Legal, and we're talking about legal stuff authors need to know. Welcome, Jeanette.
Hi, Deb. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear what you have to say because, as you can imagine, I am asked often, what about this? What about that? I need to worry about this because there's so much fear around putting things in writing, especially as, you know, we deal mostly with people that are either doing business books or memoirs, which means naming people, all sorts of things. So I'm very much looking forward to chatting to you. But before I start asking you some questions and picking your brain, I just want to tell the audience a little bit about you, just a couple of things that we've learnt. I mentioned that you are an author and the name of your book, there you go. What does it? Cover Your Ass Online, a guide to protecting your online business assets. How beautiful is that? So those of you that are listening that are in business for yourself, but even those that have written memoirs and, you know, if you're working with me and you're looking at building maybe a coaching business or something around your experience, then maybe this is a book that you might, do you want to just hold it up again?
Yeah, sure.
There you go. Cover Your Ass Online, a guide to protecting your online business assets. So it could be a very good resource. So just keep that in mind, and at the end of the conversation we'll actually give you some details as to where you can get a hold of that and where you can get a hold of Jeanette. But something else that I've learned about Jeanette is that she loves having a good chat and she loves hearing people's stories, which is probably really handy because I imagine she's hearing stories all day, every day. Would that be right?
It would, absolutely. Yeah. It's fascinating what different things people do. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it actually is. It's never boring, is it?
No.
No. And the other thing that I've learned about you is that your love of business. You love developing your team and supporting the people that you work with, and you're a very practical person, which I admire very much. So why don't you, I've just been talking about you, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? What would you like them to know about you, and how did you get to be doing what you're doing?
Wow. How to say that in short period. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet. And then I discovered vets do yucky stuff. And then I was lost. And by the time I finished high school, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd taken a year overseas as an exchange student in the middle and spent a year in Japan. And so by the time I finished high school, I thought, okay, well, an arts degree in Japanese is not going to achieve a great deal. So let's look for whatever double degree I can do with Japanese. And school was relatively easy for me. I enjoyed studying and that kind of thing. So I knew roughly where I was going to end up. So I flicked through a QTAC book and I went, and there was Japanese and law, or Japanese and business. So I applied for those. I got into law and I loved it. I love the intricacy of it. I love the way you have to try and pull together disparate things and make them logically make sense in once you put them together. And so I stuck with it, and I've really enjoyed the practice of law. I started in litigation, which I was good at, but after about 5 years, I sort of had the realisation that banging people's heads together does not help them, doesn't always get us, and really the only people who win in litigation are the lawyers. And I wanted to be helping people.
Yeah.
So I was lucky at that point to be in a firm that allowed me to transition across to the commercials team. And pretty much from that time, I've been working in the commercial space. I went and did almost, 9 years in-house in different companies. So working inside as their resident lawyer, which really appealed to me, you know, that practicality, okay, what can we find that works? What's the actual solution? Yeah, there's a whole lot of legal stuff over here, but what can we do that's legal and works? And then from there, back in, I think, February 2015, I started what is now Onyx full-time and have built a team. So yeah, it's been an
Wonderful.
interesting journey. A lot of fun.
Yeah, that's just
Ups
terrific.
and downs.
Yeah. And look, you know, I don't know if you know Julie Cross. She put another one of our authors sent a blog out this morning talking about the ups and downs. But if you don't have the ups and downs, you know, you're not alive. You're not alive.
Well, and you don't appreciate the ups. You know, because the downs can feel devastating at the time, but once you get through them, then you go, oh, actually, be grateful for everything I've got. Look at this, and you know, yeah.
It's all about expanding your mindset, isn't it? And sometimes you have to experience things for that to happen. You can't just think your way through things.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
So, well, that's awesome. What a journey you've had. And, you know, Paula Burgess and I, you know, Paula, we always talk about business being like extreme sport, and, you know, with a learning curve that's pretty much like that. And that can be horrific when you're going down the other side, but a whole lot of fun when you're on the up. And it always turns around, you know, it just does. Especially when you've got good people around you, you know, that are supportive. So we have a fairly large group of authors that make up the Disruptive Author community. And they're always asking me about, you know, can I say this person's name? Should I trademark that? What exactly is copyright? So I'm going to jump into some questions now around that and just pick your brain around that. And hopefully that when the next person comes to me and says, what about this, what about that, I can say, go and have a look at that interview, or go and listen to that interview. You'll get a lot out of it. So I'm very grateful that you're here today. Can you please explain to us what is copyright from a legal perspective? What does it mean to an author?
Absolutely. So copyright is a bundle of rights. It's not one thing. So it's something you can break up and use in different ways. But essentially, the bundle of rights gives you, there's two aspects, a commercial aspect and a sort of non-commercial aspect, personal aspect. The commercial aspect is being able to protect your works in such a way that you can earn money from it. And the non-commercial is being able to protect your work to ensure that you are the author and it's not denigrated in any way. So the second part is called moral rights, and they are quite different. So when people talk about plagiarism and when they talk about lack of attribution, that's all to do with the moral rights side of things. When somebody copies your work and tries to pass it off as their own, that's both a moral right and a commercial right. And when someone steals your work, I was talking to a client yesterday who does programs online, and somebody has copied their program, not even tried to change it, and he's trying to sell it at 10% the cost online.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah, it's all a digital program. So in that instance, that's a commercial right that you want to go and protect. So with that bundle of rights, if you think about books that get changed into movies, because it's a bundle of rights, the right to perform the book or to adapt the book into a screenplay is just one little aspect of copyright. So you can license someone to do that, or you can sell the right to do that, but you need to retain all of the copyright in your book and all of the other rights to copyright that you have.
Okay, so you still own it in essence.
You still own it. You still own it. Yeah, you can get it translated, you can get it turned into something else, you know, all of those sorts of things you retain. So that's what copyright is. It gives you a level of flexibility to do with your work what you want to do. And copyright exists upon creation. You don't have to register it anywhere. There is an electronic copyright register in the US, but there isn't anywhere else in the world.
So my understanding was as soon as you can prove that you created this, and our computers usually show dates when documents were created in particular, as long as you can show that, then you can claim copyright over that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's other ways. There was a movie years ago, I think it's called Working Girl, had Melanie Griffith in it.
I love that movie.
Yeah. It's an old one, but it's a good one. she was able to demonstrate just what her thought process was to come up with an idea. Yeah. And that was sufficient proof to demonstrate she had ownership in a particular instance. But copyright needs to be reduced to tangible form. So it needs to be in writing, or at least able to be produced in tangible form to be protected. I'm just going to plug in my phone and hope that improves the internet. Hang on 2 seconds.
You're a bit laggy, aren't we?
Yeah. I'll just shut everything else down too. There we go. All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, so let's move on then. Can you please tell us a little bit about how trademarking works and when and how it might be important for an authorpreneur to actually consider trademarking either their title or their work? So I get this question a lot, especially around titles.
Okay, well, that's a great question because titles are too short to attract copyright. Whether or not you trademark a title is if you're going to use that title as a brand. And if you're going to use it as a brand, you need to know what you're going to distinguish in the market with that brand. So, for example, Nike is a brand for sports apparel. That's their market, because there are 45 different classes of trademark, and you need to, and it costs to register in each class. So you need to identify which class you're going to register your trademark in. So if you're going to go into coaching and education, that's class 41. You want to be able to check that your title is able to be distinguished from existing registered trademarks and is not so generic that it can't be registered. So generic words are, for example, copywriter Burpengary.
Yes.
It's descriptive. It's generic terms. It's not distinctive in any way. If your title is unique and quite different. So who was the accountant who got in lots of trouble? What was he? The Naked CEO?
Okay.
Okay, so the Naked CEO is something that probably could have been trademarked in the area of business education. So there's an example. So it's if you intend to leverage the value of the brand, what are they? It's not the Chicken Soup for the Soul. There's a collection of books where there's a whole lot now created. It might be Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Well, definitely, they're all compilation books. And there's a lot.
I know. Yeah. Oh, Mars and Venus. Mars and Venus do a whole lot of compilation books. Okay. And so Mars and Venus is, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, is the trademark. And then they use that trademark to create a whole empire around it.
Nice. Yeah. All right, so they're good examples. Just roughly cost-wise per category, what would an author be looking at to? So let's say they were going to go into 2 different categories, perhaps. Latest figures that I had, people would be looking at like a minimum of $1,500 just to register in 2. This is if they're doing it themselves. Would that be a fair estimate? I'm not sure what the price is at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure what there's TM Head Start, which is something offered by IP Australia, which helps people go through the process by themselves. I don't know the cost of TM Head Start. I can tell you that per class, if you use the preset descriptors already approved by IP Australia, it's $250 per class. Okay. If you use a unique descriptor that hasn't already been approved, it's $400 per class.
There you go. Mm. All right, so that just gives people an idea of sort of what they're looking at. If you're really serious about trademarking something around your writing, or what it is that, so you might have a program. And something that I do with authors, especially if they're doing a business book, is encourage them to create what I call a transformational edge, and have something like an acronym or something that they can use within their business that no one else can claim. And it's just a way of delivering their knowledge, and that's the sort of thing that I would imagine that you would trademark, so no one else can sort of steal that, because there's so much knowledge. We all have so much knowledge, and we can access knowledge, you know, every day on the internet. So it's all more about how you put your stamp on that. And how you deliver it. So trademarking, I think, is a good thing in certain circumstances, especially if, as you say, you want to make money and you want to build on top of what you've created. Let's talk about defamation, because this is another question that I get. People are worried about telling their story, especially if there's pain involved, which there often is, and there is some sort of abuse or perpetrator. Then, you know, it's very much tread gently. Some people use pen names, but what is it that people need to know around that? So, how do they stay safe and protect other people as well?
Okay, so it is all about considering how it's presented. You can't defame a dead person.
Okay.
So anyone who's passed away, you don't need to worry about that. In terms of defamation, it has to be something that adversely impacts the reputation of the person you're talking about. Okay. And if they want to make a claim, they have to demonstrate that adverse impact, and they have to demonstrate loss. So there've been a couple of, just last year, there were some changes in the defamation law. Is supposed to be nationally consistent, and it is probably 80% consistent nationally, but every state and territory, whenever they adopt a piece of national legislation, they have to have their own little quirks. And Queensland updated its defamation legislation last year to make it a bit more consistent with some of the other states. So they've reduced the ability to make a claim for defamation. So if it's considered frivolous or vexatious, you can't make a claim anymore. Generally speaking, to protect yourself, if you're very worried, is to get consent from the person that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And you've also got to consider, because it's about a reputation of a person, and you're writing as somebody most people don't know, if you mention a friend or a relative and you don't give a great deal of specifics, so it's very hard to identify who they might be, mm-hmm. The chances of them making a claim are significantly reduced, because who is ever going to see that book that is going to know that they're the person referred to in the book?
Yeah.
That can help reduce your claims.
But one thing that especially for first-time authors, I think first-time authors think everyone that they know is going to read their book, and you may already have realised this, they don't. So many of them that are very, very close to you, if it's not their thing, if it's not their topic, you know, if you've got friends and family that don't need to cover their ass online, you know, then why would they read your book? It's just great, you wrote a book, fantastic. But, you know, so even from that perspective, there's a lot of fear, I think, for authors that is unnecessary.
Absolutely. But read a biography.
Yes.
You know, I read, at Christmas time, I read Ida Buttress's autobiography. Yeah. She mentions everybody by name.
Wonderful, wonderful. And she would know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And she's got interesting stories. And
I bet she
so,
does.
you know, yeah. So definitely it is sensible to be cautious. But don't be so cautious that you're paralysed. And if you're worried about it, write it, keep track of what you're worried about, and then get that checked.
Yeah,
you know,
good idea.
at the end of writing the book, as to whether you need to edit that bit.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, that's great. So is there anything in particular that our authors should be mindful of around contracts? So whether that be contracting to someone to work for them, as in a ghostwriter or an illustrator, and even with me, when we're contracted to do work for people. So whether it's editing, publishing, or whether it's providing work for someone else. So whether they're actually going to do some editing or some writing for someone else. Is there anything in particular that they need to be mindful of?
Yes, definitely. Don't sign anything if you don't understand it. Because if you sign it, if you sign it, whether you have read it or not, whether you understand what it means or not, you are bound by the terms. So don't sign it if you don't understand it. Get advice. If you are contracting with someone and copyright is involved, be aware that copyright can only be transferred in writing. So if you get a ghostwriter, you must have a written agreement with them, because the copyright ownership has to be transferred in writing. And if you are contracting with someone overseas, just be aware that it's very hard to enforce contracts overseas. It's expensive. It's a process. So the most important part there is to ensure you have a strong, trusted relationship. Put the time and the effort in the relationship. Have the contract because it gives clarity to the parties, but don't put it in a position where you have to enforce it, because it's prohibitive if people are overseas.
So that's probably very interesting for anyone that goes to someone like Fiverr and engages someone to either write something or illustrate something in particular. So I've had a lot of people that have come to me that want to do children's books, and they've gone to engage an illustrator who will give them copyright for 12 months. But after that, so they want to use...
helpful.
It's not helpful at all. And I've said, no, that's not okay. That's not going to work for you. And if I'm assuming that everyone that comes to me...
you need a full transfer.
Yes, complete transfer. You either own it or you don't. That's what I have advised. So, and simply because I'm assuming that everyone that comes to me, so not everyone makes a living from their writing, but everyone that comes to me, I'm assuming there is an opportunity for them to become $1 million bestseller. The opportunity is always there. You never know who that's going to be or how many there are going to be that go down that track and have that success. So what does that mean in terms of then having to pay someone for the illustrations ongoing for the rest of that book's life, which these days is, unlimited?
Yes, absolutely.
It's way too messy. So, no, that's great advice about overseas. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is relevant for authors?
Just that, so we have a 20-minute short advice service. It is a paid service, but if you are worried about something, don't let it hold you up. Book a time, have a chat with us, ask all of those questions, because we can probably answer those questions for you. And if we can't answer them exactly at that point in time, we can find the answer for you. And then you've got no excuse to stop. You remove that hurdle, it's gone, you've got peace of mind, and you're able to move forward and do what you want to do. So we are, we're people too. We're approachable. We love people who tell stories. If you've got questions, please ask them and don't let that stop you.
Wonderful. I put a post out today. Fear is a thief. Don't let it steal from you. Ask a question. Go and talk to Jeanette. So where can they find you? How can people reach you?
Okay, so we have a wonderful website, which we didn't do, we outsourced. Because
that's not your business.
Exactly. It's called onyx.legal, and Onyx is ONYX.legal, and that's it. So you can find us there. We've got a little make an appointment button right at the top on the left-hand side of the front page. You can join our newsletter if you like. That's at the bottom of the front page, or you can just drop us an email. And the email probably the best email address is advice@onyx.legal.
You just make it so simple. And I would advise anyone that's listening or watching this today to follow that through. Totally. Yeah. And, and that's a good business thing too. I just want to say, make it easy for your customers to engage with you and work with you. So whether you're going to be moving into coaching or something similar, always make it as easy as possible for people. Don't make them jump through hoops. So, Jeanette, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've reinforced a lot of stuff for me and taught me a few things. And so it's just great now we've got this resource we can just, share with our authors, new and, those that we've worked with in the past. Because one thing about authors is we know once they've written one, they're probably not going to stop there. They're going to keep going. So there will be questions coming your way, I'm sure. Thank you again, and let's wind this up for today. Did you have something that you wanted to say to the viewers before we finish up?
No, just all the best in your writing experiences. It's really exciting. I love reading. I've always got half a dozen books on my bedside table, and
there's not enough.
There can never be enough books.
Yes, totally. Great minds. Awesome. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much for today, and I look forward to seeing you soon.